Good morning, everybody. Hi, y'all. Nice to meet you. Happy Wednesday morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you happen to be in the world today. And we'll be getting started in just a minute or two. I am having some technical difficulties with my Wi-Fi. It looks like over here it's saying it's unstable. So if at any point I get a little laggy, cut out, that's probably why. Very sorry for the inconvenience. Tried my best, but on campus, the Wi-Fi can be a little finicky. Um, but yes, very nice to see everybody. My name is Kari. I'm a brand new coach here at MLH, and this is actually my second live stream. And today we'll be talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning in iOS. So this is actually the second part of this workshop. However, I have good news for you in that the first part is not really related to the second part at all. So if you missed the live stream yesterday, you have nothing to worry about because we will walk through all of the things that we need in order to make this happen. So we'll go ahead and walk through how to create a new application for those of you who have never done a project in Swift. We'll walk through how to, get started. We'll walk through training our own machine data model. We'll go through training our own. We'll then go through incorporating that model. We'll test our model. And then at the end, we'll incorporate it into hopefully a pretty close running application and something that if you want, you can build upon, you can make something new out of. I have my little cup of coffee here that we're going to enjoy while we're streaming today. And yeah, very excited for you all to be joining me on this fine day or evening, wherever you happen to be. So awesome. Just so everybody's kind of on the same page when we get started, some of the tools and the resources that I suggest. Hi, everybody. It's me again. I accidentally closed my own stream. But welcome back. I'm here. If y'all missed this, I'm a brand new MLH coach. So sometimes I suffer from technical difficulties a little bit more often. But we are getting used to it and we are getting situated. So just for today's workshop, from what I was saying earlier, we'll be going through and creating our own machine data model using Create ML. We will also be working on creating any prerequisites for today's workshop. We'll also be working on creating a Swift application. We'll get it up and running and hopefully get everything situated. Prerequisites for today's workshop, the only thing that you'll really need is Xcode. So potentially having access to a device that can install Xcode. There are ways to do it on Windows, but they're a really complicated, just not in any way, shape, or scope coverable, like within even the 2 hours I have. However, I will say that for if you're on a Mac, that it's just as easy as downloading Xcode from the App Store. So this is kind of a tutorial that is a touch easier if you're a Mac user. But if you're not, you can still follow along. You can still learn some stuff. You can still kind of watch along and write some code and figure some things out. But yeah, we'll be working in Xcode today. So I suggest getting your Xcode installed and downloaded. Programming language for this workshop is going to be Swift. Specifically, be working with SwiftUI. So if you're not familiar with the larger picture, Swift is a programming language developed by Apple for creating mobile applications on iOS devices, eventually expanded to be the language used for things like Apple Watch applications, Apple TV applications, as well as phone applications, which is kind of what we traditionally think of when we think apps. But yeah, that's the programming language we'll use. It's pretty, like, we won't be really getting into any like super complicated programming concepts. Everything we'll be using will be built in libraries in some form, or taking advantage of things that you are probably familiar with. So that should be a good way to kind of get started. And then let me just go ahead and see here. This is a beginner-friendly workshop, if that's your question. Do not worry about it. Well, I'll try to be pretty slow. Try to keep it like easy enough for people to follow along. I'm just trying to find one of my screens that I want to use for the workshop today. Because I have some things written out that I'm going to be pulling from. Just so if you see me off looking to the side, I've got some notes here just so make sure that I cover everything I want to talk about. But yeah, we are going to get started, and I'm going to show everybody who missed the workshop yesterday how to start a new project. And then for our workshop today, we'll be using an existing project. So we'll be using the project that I made during part 1 yesterday. But so just so everybody is aware, we're gonna share my screen, and we're gonna share, let's see here. Okay. We're gonna share this screen. Should just be my Xcode window, and then that, and then we'll be good to get started. Awesome. So what I just did to get started with the application is I opened up Xcode, which I have installed in my, which I've installed here, and I just keep it on the bottom right of my Launchpad. And so you can't see that part because we're just sharing my Xcode window. But we'll be working on an application. And so what you do to create an application is you have the top bar, or you can, when you open up Xcode, it will have a little view that says like create a new project. So you'll do file, new project, and then you'll click app, and then on iOS, and then you'll give your product a name. Yesterday we used Sleepy Time. So if you're starting with a project from scratch, I suggest using Sleepy Time again. Our team is going to be none. You don't really need it. Our organization identifier can be anything. Our interface has to be SwiftUI, and our language has to be Swift. And we are going to get this use core data button checked. And that is for a couple of reasons. Really, the most important one is just that we'll be using it for to use a couple of things within our applications and make them a little bit easier. So we'll go ahead and show you what the project we worked on yesterday looks like at this point. So I'm going to open that up. And let's get that open real quick. Share my screen. Perfect. So this is the project that we worked on yesterday. As you can see, we have a couple of views here. If we launch the project, I'll kind of show you what it looks like on a physical device, which actually, yeah, you can just use preview here to show you what it looks like on a physical device. So on the right-hand side here, if you've never used code, this is an emulator. So it just allows for you to kind of see what the screen looks like when you're going to launch it on a phone. And so in here, we have just a list of views that populates with just some random variables in the case of like this display screen. And then the part that we worked on yesterday is this little moon symbol here. So if you came to the workshop yesterday, this might look familiar. We worked on a sleep sentiment analysis tracker that, based on your desired wake-up time, your sleep, and your stress levels, will determine what time you should be heading to bed. So that is kind of what we did with the project yesterday. And I just realized I wasn't sharing my screen there really quickly. So you can kind of see what we worked on yesterday. If I click back within my Xcode, then you'll be able to see. There we go. Then you'll be able to see sort of the main view that we started with. And so what happens right now when we press add is it just adds a new element with some random tags that says item at 8:23, 8:23:05 a.m. And then we press edit, we have the ability to delete any of our events. So the add and the edit button came with SwiftUI when we created a project with core data. So if you created a project with core data and you didn't come to part 1 of the workshop yesterday, you'll just not see the moon symbol and you won't have access to this screen, which is what we worked on yesterday. However, you'll be able to do the other part of the workshop. Like I said, it's pretty independent. So we'll be able to work through both of those parts together. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. The couple of things that we'll be working on today is first off, we'll be working on creating, I'm just going to squish out the screen a little bit, make it easier to see. But yeah, we'll be working on creating a machine learning model using some training data sets. So I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen and talk a little bit about the training data set that we're going to be using and specifically what the project today is going to be about. So our training data set today is going to come from this open use library called Sentiment 140. And Sentiment 140 is just a training data set that was used for creating a lot of natural language processing libraries. So it's not open source, but the training data they used is widely available. So it's what we'll be using today. And the link for that, accessing that, is right here. I'm going to go ahead and pop it into a banner super quickly so that everybody can see it. Actually, I'm going to post it in the chat. And then this is the link we'll be using for getting our training data set. So it's just help.sentiment140.com/for-students. It allows for you to kind of see a little bit more about what the project sort of, it will be the data set that we're using today. So if you go on the website, I'm going to just go ahead and share my Chrome tab super quick. So if you go on the website, you can see here, it tells you a little bit about what Sentiment 140 is, how does it work, how is it a different classifier than anybody else. But the part that really concerns us is the section for students. So as you can see, we have here for academics, a little bit about our algorithms, and then we have our training data. So you can download the training data at either one of these links. So I'll be using the Google Drive link today. So I'm just going to go ahead and download our training data. So this is just a case of downloading the file. And then I did verify this file. Everything was all funky-dory and good to go. So you should just be able to download it and then unzip the archive and then open the file. So we're actually I'm going to show you guys what the file looks like open in just a second. So we're going to share my screen again. So there you go. We have some test data here that has a lot of information about what we're, specific information that we're looking for. So this first one is the sentiment. The second one is some identification number. This third one is the time at which, in this case, this data set learns from Twitter. So this is the timestamp at which the tweet was made. So all of these are roughly from 2009. This is the account that made the tweet. Or is just some random identification about what the tweet involves. Anything from LaTeX to Bobby Flay to jQuery to driving, eating, Nike, going to Safeway, night at the museum, taking an exam, anything and everything in between. So very comprehensive data set. Then we have the username of the person who made the tweet, and we have the actual tweet that helps us determine then how they feel about it. So let's take a negative tweet. You can go ahead and take a look at something that's go ahead and see, like this 0 tweet right here says, I'm itchy and miserable. So that has a rating of 0. We're like, that's not exactly good. And then we have a rating of 4 that's like, is going to sleep, then on a bike ride, and a little smiley face. So relatively positive tweet. And we have a neutral tweet that's just landed at San Francisco. So we'll need to do a couple of things to this data to make it more usable. And so I'm going to go ahead and add this to the stream so that people can follow along. A squirrel just jumped on my window. Hi, buddy. All right, cool. We're going to do a couple of things to this data set to make it more usable. First thing we're going to do is we're going to delete this column. Second thing we're going to do is going to delete this column. Then we're going to do is we're going to delete this column. Fourth thing we're going to do is delete this column. The only thing we're leaving is the sentiment and the text. Then we're going to go ahead and add in a row. So we'll add a header row before, and then we'll change this row to be, we'll do a add row above, and then we'll cut this out, paste it here so that we can change that to be not a header row, and then delete both of these rows and delete this header row right here. And we'll call this row rating, and we'll call this row tweet. Perfect. So this is the main modifications we are making to our data set right now. And I'm just going to go ahead and save this data set as a CSV file so we can use it in our Create ML tools. So I'm just going to go ahead and save it in the folder. So training, I'm actually going to go ahead and put it into the project that we worked on. So I'll just go ahead and pop it right into the project directory. And then, yeah, that is our first part of this workshop, which is just modifying the training data set. The next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to work with Create ML to go through and train the data set. So the way that you open up Create ML and the tools that we'll be using today is you go to Open Developer Tools and then Create ML. And that allows you to open a project. So in our case, if I present to you what that looks like for me right now, you can see that right now it just says, you know, we have our projects from yesterday. So sleepy time and our Xcode project, and then our manual testing data. But what we're actually going to be doing is we're going to be creating a new machine learning project. So I'll be going into here, and now I'm going to have to expand my Create ML screen again. But this way you can kind of see what the screen looks like. So this is what happens when you want to create a machine learning model with Create ML. So we have a ton of different templates to choose from: image classification, object detection, style transfer, hand pose, word tagging, sound, activity. And then yesterday we worked with tabular regression. But what you can do is we're actually going to do text classification today. And so we'll click next. We'll call this project Sleepy Time Sentiment. And then we'll click next. We'll save it somewhere within our directory, and then you'll be able to see. Actually, you will not be able to see. So I'm going to have to stop sharing my screen and reshare it. But now you should be able to see what our training set looks like. So this is what Create ML is like. This is the best part of Create ML. So truly, it's how easy it is to train a machine learning data set from start to finish. So we'll go ahead and rename this model source to Sleepy Time Sentiment, if it lets me. Please. Oh, you know what? We're just going to leave it. And then we have some training data. So in here, we can go ahead and choose some our manual testing data. Missing required field label. Ah, yes, I remember this. And then what we need to do to go ahead and fix that up is we actually need to go back and fix up the data set super quickly. So go into training and test data, to my Sleepy Time project, go into my export it super quickly, modifying it, replacing the data, and then go ahead and pop this back in, and then the other label needs to be called text. That's what it was. So that's what I love about SwiftUI, truly, and just a lot of the Apple developer tools in general, is that they're really clear about what you do wrong if you happen to do it wrong. So, like right here, it's like you're missing the required field label. Like I need to have a field label for you to be able to do this. So where's your field label? So we'll go ahead and just rerun this, and we have 3 classes and 497 items. So you can go ahead and click on that and see that we have 181 4 rating items, 170 rating items, and 143 2 rating items. And so if we go back to our project and our model sources, then we can see our validation data. We've automatically split from the training data, and we won't have any testing data today. For the algorithm types, we have, conditional random field, transfer learning, and maximum entropy. Today we'll just be doing maximum entropy, just because it is the easiest to kind of follow along with. And then, we'll go ahead and press train on our data set here. And it's going to tell you, hey, I managed to get trained with 99.8% accuracy. And you can kind of see some of the training and see, when you have the testing, we didn't do any, but when you have the validation, you said we had 67% precision, 71% recall, or 70% precision, 88% recall, or 57% precision, 40% recall. And you can definitely tell when we are doing like the actual project part of this that our application is the worst at discerning just neutral sentiment. It is the best at, it is decent at telling between positive and negative. It struggles at telling between positive and neutral and negative and neutral, which is natural because A, that is much more subjective than positive and negative, and B, different people think about what is positive and what is negative really differently. It's pretty bad at reading sarcasm, naturally. The sarcasm is pretty hard to understand. It is, a relatively small data set. But we can preview here. So this allows us to kind of see what our model looks like. So if I say, hi, excited for this workshop, then we have, it's 76% sure that I'm happy, 17% sure that I'm sad, and 7% sure that I'm neutral. So it's pretty confidently able to assess that I am feeling good about this workshop. So let's think about some other options, like, oh no, it's workshop. Had to start late. Then it's decently confident that we are not pleased. It's like it's trying to figure out, is it a happy message, is it a neutral message right now, or is it a sad message, is it a neutral message? Right now it's leaning a little bit more towards, oh, okay, this is a sad message, but I'm not really sure. let's say, oh no, this workshop had to start late because had too much fun playing Scribble.io. And now you can see this is like a neutral statement where like this workshop had to start late because we had too much fun playing Scribble.io. And it can pretty confidently say, with 55% confidence, it can be like, okay, that's just a statement of fact, you know? Like this workshop had to start late because we had too much fun playing Scribble.io, right? If we say, unfortunately, you know, that changes a little bit how it feels, right? If we try and give it some words that are a little bit sad, like say, fortunate, or bad, that it can much confidently say it's a negative statement. Well, awesome. That is our training part of this workshop. So now what we can do is we can actually get our data model and download it into our application. So what we do is we can press this get button right here, and it'll open up my Finder and allow me to save it. So I'm just going to go ahead and save it under Sleepy Time Sentiment and pop it directly into my project. And that's that. Now we have an extracted ML model. To kind of show you what that looks like, if I go, or just kind of talk you through what that looks like, if I go into my Finder, you can see Sleepy Time Sleep Mode from yesterday's workshop, both as an ML project and then an ML model we extracted. And then today's project, Sleepy Time Sentiment, both as an ML project, which is what we just worked on, and an ML model, which is what we just went ahead and exported. So now what we'll be doing is we'll be actually working within our main application and getting the learning model set up. But first, we're going to take a really quick break. I'm going to go ahead and drink some of my delicious coffee, and we'll be back in about 5 to 10 minutes. If you have any questions during that time, you can definitely pop them in the chat. I will be around to answer them here and there. But yeah, see y'all in a bit. everybody. We're back. Woo. All right, awesome. We're going to go ahead and get started, which in our case is going to be working through our application. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Swift view, and we will be able to... Welcome back. Awesome. We'll go ahead and turn off that little please wait banner, and then we'll go ahead and shoot that a bit just so I can see all of that, and then have a little idea of what's going on in here, and then perfect. Awesome. So going back to our application, one of the first things we did is we, launched a new application, right? Or we launched our existing application from yesterday. And now the next thing we need to do is actually worry about, okay, how do we put in the machine learning model we just trained into our application? Luckily for us, it's pretty easy. We'll just add files to a little sleepy time over here. And let me just make sure that I'm not sharing my screen again. But there we go. Yeah, so we'll add our little files into sleepy time, which is our project, and then go ahead and go out one directory, and we'll pull in our file. So usually what we can do is we can just drag and drop our model directly into the correct location, which I like to just do. So I can pull in the model pretty quickly. And sometimes I also go into my directory and I move the model one file down so it's in the same location as all of them. And so as you can see, that turned in red. So sometimes I'll just delete that and then drag it in again. Yeah, sleepy time set the model. So I just have copy items if needed, finish that. Boom, there's a little sentiment model. So you can see, compare it to the model from yesterday, we had a vectorized regressor with some predictions and some performance stuff. Today we have a text classifier. So that's what it looks like, but differently. I think go ahead and put in like, and then boom, spits out some stuff. Yay. There you go. Perfect. So back to our little preview view of our summit training model. And then the next part we'll be working on is actually going ahead and creating our model, or not creating our model, but incorporating our model into the larger application. So the first thing that I usually do is when we go to our content view, right now we have, when we press this add button here, all that it does is it just adds some text, which isn't that helpful really. Like it just adds a random thing with the current time, which like personally, I think that's kind of boring. So we'll go ahead and replace it so that when we press add item, instead of adding a new item, we'll go ahead and move to a different view. So we'll comment out the add item function so that when right now it says, we can't add this add item function. Instead, what we'll do is we'll do a navigation link the same way as we made in the application yesterday. So you kind of want to create a similar effect. So we'll copy the navigation link from here. And we have a toolbar item with, trailing placement. Actually, it's not a toolbar item with trailing placement, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and figure out what like side we like it on better. We'll try navigation bar leading to start, and then we will... Where does this select an item text show up? I'm genuinely curious, but is it when I press edit it? No? Interesting. All right. Well, what we'll do though, is we'll go ahead and replace this with the navigation link So right now, if we were to press the plus button, oh, as you can see, it's navigation bar leading. So we'll change it to trailing, and we'll change this to plus, just to kind of show you. So right now, if we press the plus button, it goes directly to our sleep mode view. But that's not what we want, because we want it to go to a different view. We want it to go to our view where we'll be able to enter more details about our sleep. So to do that, we're actually going to need to create a new view. And the way that we do that is we click here and we click on new file, and we'll be able to add in a SwiftUI view. We're going to call this view journal view, because this will be for a sleep journal. And we'll go ahead and add it in. And then we have a brand new journal view. I'm just going to drag it so that it's in the same spot as all the other views. Technically, this is the same directory, but I always like having all of my views be together, so it's easier for me to keep track of where things are. And now let's see, if we go back to our content view and I change, it's when I press plus button, what I want to do is, instead of going to sleep mode view like I do when I press the moon button, I want to go to my journal view. And so what does that look like if I zoom in on this side, right? If I zoom in a little bit more, right? So you can see this a bit better. Except not that much. Oh no. There we go. Okay. I press this plus button. We go to Hello World. Yay. Why do we go to Hello World? Because our journal view literally just says Hello World. So great way, great start. You know, we have a new view that we've created, and we can change the little system image as well. And actually what I'm going to do is, let's think about how we want this top part of the application laid out, right? I like the moon on the left-hand side. I think that's really cute. Go into our little data set here, and I like the edit button right there. But I don't know whether I like the plus button where it is or where it used to be. So for those of you who just came, or those of you who came back after our break, or for those of you who just are like, what is she talking about? What we can do is, when we zoom out here, I just built the project on accident. We're going to close that. Oops. Just so we can watch it directly on the screen here instead of launching a brand new device. But yeah, this is what it used to look like. We had the plus button right there and the edit button. So plus button goes to the new screen. Edit button allows you to delete. Moon button goes there. But do we want it to be a plus button? That's kind of the big question. I personally really like when it looks like sun. There's this one, so system image allows you to access this thing called SF symbols, which if you press Command Shift L on your computer with an Xcode, you'll be able to see it. But these are like 3,000 symbols that you can use for anything, pretty much. Like, they're great little symbols for representing anything, truly. You have, archive box circle full. I saw one about figure skating like 2 seconds ago. Graduation cap circle. Person crop circle badge clock, figure skiing cross country. Yeah, here's all the figure sports. Here's all the sports. Stair stepping, surfing, sports court, different lane numbers, soccer ball, like different items to play with, different lines they can use, control space, all option, function, different light modes and things like that. All like the standard FS symbol library. But I really like, there's one. Okay, wait, I just found one for the sleep mode that I think is going to be even better. So you can't see my library right now because I'm only sharing my main Xcode screen. But if I go back, I was looking at, okay, there's a moon.zzz that looks so cute, especially the fill. Look at that. It's adorable. Okay. And then system image here I really like there's a couple of really good ones that have to do with like the weather, or like the sun, which I personally really enjoy. Um, the ones that I like the most are for like the idea behind this application is we're creating a sleep journal, right? So we want to make sure that like the symbol is something that if a person opens our app in the morning, it's pretty intuitive for them that like that's the button that they press to tell us a little bit more about their sleep, and then we'll use our natural language model then. So I really like sun.min.fill because it looks like a little sunset. So if you can see that on the screen right now, look at her, gorgeous, so pretty. And when you press it, go back to a little hello world screen. So yeah, just take some time and look through the symbols. You can pick any symbol that you want to use out of the SF symbol library, which is super fun. Um, but yeah, such a good, like, fun little project to just dig through the SF library. But yeah, that's the main thing that we want to do on this screen is just figure out a way for people to access our journal. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to, we have this sleep sentiment testing, right? And we know a bunch of stuff about it. But now we want to be like, okay, if I give my app some data, then how do I get it to show, like, how do I get my app to understand um, all of this stuff? Like, pretty much how do I replicate something like this preview within my application that tells me, how confident it's feeling about something, which this was like, that's gibberish, which is true. So for that, we'll actually be creating another new file. So we'll just do same thing, control click on the little directory here and then do new file. We'll do another SwiftUI view and we'll call this one, what will we call this one? I would say journal. Let's do sleep journal. Because this view will be the one, and once again, I'll drag it. This view will be the one that in which we actually work through our, I just realized I shouldn't have made this a view. I should have made this a different type because this isn't actually going to be like a traditional like SwiftUI view. We're not going to have like a screen this is going to lead to. This is going to be like the logic behind our natural language model. So I'm just going to comment this out and show you how to fix that. If you create the wrong type of file, do not fret because you can just delete the parts that tell you that it's a file that conforms to a view class. So that's what generates all this stuff, and that's what generates this preview too. So if I were to get rid of this, bye-bye preview, right? Were to get rid of this, bye-bye view, except that it's like, okay, I don't have a view to put here. So we're just going to start with a completely clean slate, and we're going to import a couple of things. First thing we're going to do is we're going to import Core ML. That's the core machine learning framework that Swift uses. They can use with CreateML, which is the training tool that we used within our applications. And then we're also going to import natural language using natural language processor. And then we'll create a new class. We'll call it Sleep Journal. And then it's going to conform to this type called observable object. Not observed, observable. And for the purposes of this tutorial, the Swift type specifically really doesn't matter. We just need it to be an observable object so that other classes and other views can observe the data within it. That's what it means to be an observable object. The little colon here just means it conforms to that type. If we compare it to, say, our little sleep mode view from yesterday, you can see that our sleep mode view conforms to view. And in the case between class and struct in SwiftUI, longer discussion that I'm going to leave off for now. But yeah, let's go ahead and get some variables set up that we're going to need. The first variables we're going to need is going to be a prediction variable, which is going to take in some string that's going to tell us, that's actually going to spit out some string that is our prediction. So whether our sentiment is happy or sad or neutral. And then we'll do a var confidence, which is pretty much going to pull remarkable sentiment data in the preview, how if we type in something, it says, how confident I'm feeling about this. That's how we'll be able to harness that data. And so we'll change that to 0.0 to start, because it's a value from 0 to 1. So like our percentage. So we'll just use it as a double, I think, is the way that I had it written out when I did a little test run. And then what we need to do is we need to use this modifier called @published. It's pretty much, there are a ton of different @modifiers in Swift. The purposes of the @published is to just tell our view, hey, this information is going to be available somewhere else. And then what we'll be able to do is some other fun stuff. We'll do a model that we'll create, which we'll pull in from the ML model class. If you were here yesterday, this part probably looks familiar. If you go back to our little sleep mode view, you can see that we also create a model configuration here and try and create some models. But if we go back to our sleep journal, we're also going to do a sentiment predictor that's going to conform to the animal model. All right, that's the start. And then the difference between classes and function and struct super quickly is that we need to create a default initializer for a class. So just be creating that here. And then we need to do a couple of things. We need to say, okay, try and do something. And if you fail to do it, try something else. So we'll have a do catch statement, which is effectively just a try catch, if you're familiar with that in SwiftUI or in other languages, not in SwiftUI. In SwiftUI, it's a do catch. And then we'll, within here, try and do a couple of things. So what we'll do is we'll try to create a sentiment model. So the way that you declare variables in Swift is it's very similar to Python, if you know that. It's like just let and var. You don't need to declare types. You can figure it out. So we'll create a sentiment model, and then we'll try to use sleep sentiment analysis, or sleepy time sentiment in our case, with the configuration ML model configuration. And I love SwiftUI and Swift for this exact reason. Like, look at this autocorrect. That was beautiful. It's like, oh, a configuration needs to be of type ML model configuration. Let me tell you, yeah, it is going to be type of a class of ML model configuration, and then we're just going to get its model. Except that needs to be out in parentheses. Perfect. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to say our model needs to become the sentiment model. So if we fail to create a model, here's what happens. And then, if we get to this part where we set our model to a sentiment model, awesome. But, we tried to create the sleepy time sentiment with this ML model configuration. That's what this try is. So now we need catch. So we're going to be like error, or can print error. Cool. Now we're going to try this again. We are going to actually implement another do catch block. And the reason for that is that we need to try some other things that might not work. And that is we actually need to run the prediction. So we're going to let our predictor attempt to get the natural language model from the ML model of model. So, and then we'll do self predictor equals predictor. And then otherwise, we'll print an error again. So we're like, for whatever reason, we weren't able to get here. My absolute bad. Awesome. So this is just a good setup for our first, initial class here. Now what we're also going to need to do is we're going to need to create a function that actually does the prediction for us. So we'll do a function called predict that takes in some text of type string. and it doesn't have a return type. And return types of Swift are done with an arrow like that. If it were to return a string, no return type, no arrow. And we'll say self.prediction, which is our published variable up there. It will be from our sentiment predictor. We'll do a predicted label or text. Otherwise, we'll do nothing. So we'll say, try and get the text and put it into our prediction and run it through the sentiment. But if there's no text, just don't put anything in. And then we'll create a prediction set, which will do sentiment predictor dot predicted label hypotheses. And then, as you can see, there's a type of the predicted label hypotheses class that just lets you pull in a bunch of stuff. And it's asking you, well, I need a string for you doing this predicted label hypothesis, and I need to know the maximum count. And so I'm going to tell you, the string is text. The maximum count is 1 because we're just going to be analyzing one string at a time. Super fun. And then what we'll do is self.confidence equals prediction set prediction. So we'll say, okay, you try to get this prediction data for me. And if you get it, let me know how confident you feel. Otherwise, just, if you're not confident at all, you're like, I have no idea what's going on. Somewhere on this process along the way, something got messed up. So that's the part of our sleep journal that, we just managed to complete. And now we'll actually move on to creating our journal view. And so within our journal view, we'll be able to do a couple of really cool things, which is largely, actually creating our sleep journal. So awesome. Let's go ahead and start. And in here, we have, our basic view that we started with yesterday, that we started with like 20 minutes ago, Kari. What are you talking about? We're going to import core data. And the reason why, and you might be like, core ML, core data, what's the difference between those? Well, core ML is the core machine learning framework for SwiftUI, hence core ML, right? It's used to work with Create ML, the Create machine learning tool that we used earlier, and all of the other aspects of SwiftUI or storyboarding or even Objective-C that you can go ahead and then combine to make your application. Core data is an entirely separate tool. And I know you're like, the names are super similar. Couldn't have they named it something different? Fortunately, no. So core data is what we use to save our data on our phone. So, the purpose of a sleep journal is for me to have some information about my sleep. So ideally, what then we'll be able to do is say I log my sleep from January 27th, and I'll be able to press, I logged my sleep from January 27th. And then a viewer will be able to see oh yeah, she logged her sleep from January 27th. I'll be able to see that. And then the next day, I'll be like January 28th, here's my more sleep. And I'll be able to see my sleep from January 28th and January 27th. If you don't enable core data or some different way of, making an application, what ends up happening is that you actually lose your data each time you close your device. And that's why if you see in our little preview mode here, you can see that there's just sample random data over here, which obviously isn't ideal. And yeah, so that's kind of where that part comes from. So we've just worked on a sleep journal. Now we're back on our journal view, and we're going to let it load for a bit. And then we're going to, we've imported core data so that we can access those fun properties of saving things. But let's go ahead and create some variables that we're going to be using today. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an observed object. So as you can see, observable object, an object that is observable, and then an observed object, which pretty much extracts from an observable object type, and that allows us to take in information from it. So create an identifier, which will call sleep journal. And then we'll use state, which allows us to read and write values managed by SwiftUI. Super cool tool, or super cool resource that allows us to take in user input pretty much, and do a host of other really cool things. But for our purposes, it allows us to take in user input. So we'll do a couple of things. We need var input, which will be the text that we give our user. And then we need state var emoji to display. And the idea behind this application is that if we put in some information about our sleep, it'll be able to spit out whether it was good sleep, meh sleep, bad sleep, and then give us a little emoji rating, which is super fun. I was like, what is a good way for me to work through this application? And I was like, emojis. And then we'll do state private var. Oh, I forgot my little private modifiers here. This is just so no other classes, no other parts can access this. Private var, and then your emoji. Super fun. And then we need a couple more variables. These are kind of confusing, but they just allow us to do a couple of more things with like the environment, with modifying our states. So we'll create these really quickly. I won't go too much detail into this. So do a little presentation mode. I did the caret the wrong way. And then we'll do var presentation mode. And the cool thing about SwiftUI too is that like if you hover over things, you can see, like it'll tell you a little bit about what it does. So if I type in @environment, it tells you a property wrapper that reads a value from a view's environment, right? Or if I type in .presentation mode, it's saying binding to the current presentation mode of the view associated with this environment. Just some little helpful tips and tricks about how SwiftUI works, which I find super cool, both as somebody that loves mobile dev and SwiftUI, and B, as somebody that is learning it actively. Super easy to find out any information that you need. And then we're actually going to also create a managed object context. So this is what we'll use for our core data. And we'll do a private var view context. Perfect. We have our declarations on the start here. And now we're actually going to move into like making the view of our application. So we're going to work and get this to look how we want it to. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap all of our information in this thing called a VStack. And if you just saw there, I just went through it very quickly, but VStack is a view that arranges its children in a vertical line. So super cool way to get things to line up, which like if you've ever worked with like say HTML and CSS and JavaScript like purely, trying to get stuff to center is like half your battle. So easy here. I love it. I'm obsessed. If you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of Swift and SwiftUI. That's why I chose to teach this workshop specifically. So let's start with a text field. Start with text field that just says, we are going to ask our user, how'd you sleep overnight? And we're going to give them, we're going to say that any of the text that they give us, we want to save into input. And so we just do the $sign to figure that out. And then boom, look, there it says, how'd you sleep overnight? And I can put in all of my little text. And it's behaving weird right now because we haven't given it any other properties. It's just like, you've created a text field. And then I'm going to do this thing. I'm just going to arrange it in a way that I like it. So I'm going to put it in axis.vertical. So I think that means it doesn't slide around. Honestly, there's so many different identifiers that sometimes I forget. And then we're going to make this look pretty. So I'm going to do some changes to it to make it look pretty. First thing I do is I'm going to call the .font identifier, and then I'm going to call .title. And so what this allows me to do is just like change the size of the text. I want to do .footnote, tiny text. .large title, very big text. Big enough for title, because so it fits nicely on the screen. And then we're gonna do a couple other things. And that is, when I put in this information, I'm gonna I might have a lot of information about my text. And so I wanted to just stay that if I type in my text, it's nicely centered. So I'm going to call a property that's conveniently named multi-line text assignment. I'm going to call it .center. And I say, you know what? Like if I have multiple lines of text, I want them to be all centered. And then boom, text field, done. And then we'll do some nice padding just to get things to be kind of on their own. So we'll do some horizontal padding to get it to move nice center. We'll do some bottom padding to get it to kind of stay away from the bottom part of the screen here. And then we will come back to it. Right now we've just made a little text field that says, how do we sleep overnight? And then we can do that. And then let's try and put in a little emoji right now. If I were to, I want to display an emoji that describes my sleep based on the information that I give it. So the idea behind this app, at least in my head, was that I can use an emoji to describe my sleep myself, but also the natural language processing model will then use the emoji to figure out, was this good sleep? Was this bad sleep? Was this okay sleep? So I want to display an emoji. So I'm going to call text, and I'm going to call it emoji to display. And that text is going to be of a specific font size. But first, what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and grab an emoji. So just for testing purposes, I'm going to grab the little happy emoji. I'm going to grab like my personal favorite emoji for the happy emoji, because you know what I'm saying? Like there's different tiers of happy emojis. We're going to grab like a really happy emoji. We're going to grab this guy. You know what? That guy, right? Super happy. He's thrilled. But look, there he is. Ah, he's really tiny right now because he's an emoji. But there you go. You can see him. There he is. Lovely little friend. And we're going to change this. So I'm going to change the font size. I'm like, that guy's tiny. So instead of using title or large title, I want it even bigger than that. I want this thing to be giant. So large title isn't big enough. We're going to use the system modifier, which is just going to let us modify the size. And I'm going to do 60. There you go. Decently sized emoji. And then we're going to do some fun things with the modification of our emoji really quickly. And so I'm actually going to go back to our text field. And I'm going to say if the text changes in the input, what I want it to do, or if the input changes, I want you to run the prediction. So self.identifier.predict. And then I want you to run it on input. And then for right now, instead of displaying the emoji, let's just say, let's just do the following. If self.identifier.prediction is 0, right? If it's like, I'm pretty sure this is a negative experience, I want it right now to just display 0. Otherwise, if it's 2, so you get my curly braces, then I want to display just the letter 2, the letter 2, the number 2, but it's a string, so that's why I said letter. And then otherwise, I know it's a 4 because our training data set only has 0s, 2s, and 4s. And so we'll do emoji to display is 4. So now what should happen is if I type in some text and I'm like, hi, 4, or oh no, so sad, or okay, or okay, you know, you can see how like tiny little changes do it, right? Like, okay, period, 2, okay, like, okay, no period 2, okay, period 0, right? So passive aggressive of them. Yeah, that allows us to kind of see your sentiment. And so now you're like, okay, but this is called emoji display, and showing like a 0, 2, or a 4 is kind of boring. To which I'm like, yeah, I agree with you. So what I'm just gonna do is we're gonna change these to be different emojis. So I have a little emoji library open. So I'm gonna pull some emojis that I think describe the experience pretty well. So we'll start with the emoji display being the 4 emoji. We're gonna go with the giant grinning guy. So if I do hi, there he is, beautiful, gorgeous grin on his face. And then what if my sleep was kind of average? What's a good average face? Personally, I think there's only one good average face, and it's this one. Beautiful. Look at her. She's gorgeous. And then we have, a sad face. I really like this one with the no eyebrows. Like, look at that. He's distraught. He's very upset about the poor quality of his sleep, which you should be. This is why we're creating this application because we're trying to get it to show up some cool stuff. All right. So, right now we have that if we give it a good text, it's happy. If we give it okay text, it's okay. And if we give it sad text, it's sad. So that's pretty much that. And if, we ask how did we sleep overnight, we that gets to do that. But I want to do some cool modifiers, make this thing look cool. So I'm going to do some opacity modifiers that tells me how confident, my natural language model is feeling about this prediction. Like, how confident is it that this was good sleep? How confident is it that it was bad sleep? So we're going to pull in our confidence. So if you remember from here, we have our identifier confidence. So we can just pull that in. And then I personally found, like, when testing this, that I didn't like how dim it was when I just had it as the default confidence because you, like, never get to 100% confidence. So I just added 0.25 because you can't have opacity higher than 1 anyway. So let's do, like, hi. It's feeling pretty confident about that being happy. Hi. So excited for this workshop. Right? Beautiful. Or, I had to wake up so early to teach this workshop. Right? Something like that. Or I got awful sleep. Stuff like that. Now we got a little emoji that's different opacities. And the other thing we're going to do is we're actually going to increase and decrease its size based on how we're feeling. So I'm going to do a scaled effect. It's going to take the CG float value, which for the purposes of this tutorial doesn't really matter, but it's going to start with a 1, and it's going to pull in our confidence. That's going to subtract 0.5, and that's going to determine the size. So if I'm like, hi, very confident, very big emoji. No. Not really confident, slightly smaller emoji. So yeah, that's pretty much like the crux of using our natural language model within the actual application. So let's get this thing working with some of the other stuff that we've made. And let's maybe add some other cute new features. First thing I want to do is, like I said, I want to kind of get it to, I want to be also able to pick an emoji to describe my own sleep. So we're going to do a little text modifier here that says, choose an emoji. to describe your sleep. And we'll be able to then also get another text field, which will just leave it as ... That's where we'll be putting in our sleep. And we'll be saving that text to the your emoji variable. And then we're going to change the font to title because we want it to be a slightly bigger font. Oh, there it is. There's where we can put in our emoji. And when you're writing it on like a physical device, you can put in an emoji like using your own emoji keyboard. If I were to, describe my sleep, I'm going to describe my sleep as, what's a good emoji to describe my sleep? I'm going to describe my sleep as this, because I'm still quite tired. I can go ahead and put in that emoji. If it will let me today, that's okay. The general idea is that you can put an emoji like typing it on the keyboard, but we're just testing right now, so I won't waste too much time doing that. All right, let's center our text, just in case somebody wants to put in a lot more text, but also to get it look nice and pretty. Let's add some padding too, just to make it look like the other views. We'll add some horizontal padding to get it centered, and then some bottom padding to get some more space for everybody. And then what we need to do is save our information. So if I'm like, I slept well. Well, as you can see, sometimes small is bad, but like slept or sleep was awesome. Let's do that. Then I can, put in an emoji to describe my sleep. Might need to do that on an actual application, but now I want to say, okay, now I want to create a button so I can save my information. So we're going to do a button, we're going to call it save. And then when this button's pressed, we're going to run an action. And then what I want to do is also do a button style of this thing called border prominent. So this is just a nice button styling. So you can use a bunch of default button styling. It takes advantage of like the pre-made buttons in SwiftUI, which I personally really appreciate. You want bordered prominent. And then we'll be able to, if I in here put in print, for example, and boom, there's our button. It says save. Beautiful. Right now it does nothing except for print. So we can go ahead and add in a function that we're going to call when we're ready to save our information. And this function is going to take advantage of core data and let us save our information so we can access it on different views. So create a private function called add item. And then we will do, let's do some animations. We'll do with animation. It's a cool little thing that you can add with SwiftUI. So with animation, we're going to create a new item. And it's going to conform to the item type with the view context. So now those variables from all the way up here make a little bit more sense, but you might still be like, item, what's that? We never talked about that. Well, let me introduce you to our little information here. So if you remember way back when, if you go to our content view here, this has items, and this has specific timestamps. Saves the day, the time at which you're doing a specific thing, right? So that's where it does that. It pulls in the context and it says the timestamp as the date, and then you try and save the view context. So we'll actually go ahead and figure this out. So right now, we're just saving the date, but we want to be saving more stuff. So we're going to go into our persistence controller here, into our entities. We're going to add some more entities. We're going to add a timestamp, which is going to be the date. We're going to add a text, which is going to be a string. That's going to be like how we felt about our sleep, like our little write-up. Then we're going to do an emoji, And that's going to be the NLP emoji that the sentiment analysis found for us. And finally, we're going to do my emoji, or your emoji, which is going to be the emoji that we put in when we run the application. So now we have all these attributes which we can use within our application to save information. So we'll say, okay, in my new item, I want to create a new item that conforms to view context, and I want to do a couple of things with it. First thing, I want the timestamp to be equal to today's date, right? I'm putting in my sleep journal stuff, so I want it to be today's date. I want the text to conform to input. I want, or to be equal to input, I want the emoji to be equal to the emoji display. And I want my emoji to be equal to, well, my emoji. And then what we want to do, value of type item has no member text. That's not true. It's right there. Sometimes it takes some time to process things. In that case, sometimes what I'd like to do is like to run a clean build folder. Then I'd like to restart, and boom, there it goes. Saves up all our little build. And now what we're going to try and do is actually try and save this thing, right? So we're going to do, and then catch, we've been here before. We're going to say, you know, I want to try to save to the view context. And then I want to dismiss this view once we're done. So that's where that presentation mode variable comes in. It allows us to dismiss this view once we're done typing in it. And then if nothing happens, we'll just throw an error. This is just a different way to throw an error specifically. Fatal error. This will just crash our application if it's unresolved. Error. Perfect. We have, you know, this error, and then that's it for actually trying to save our application. But now you're like, okay, like, let's launch this application. Let's see how this works. Right? We're going to launch this application, right? We've spent so much time trying to get this perfect. And I'm actually going to share my screen. Share just the phone so we can take a look at it together. But yeah, here's my phone, right? Here's what I worked so hard on. Here's our stuff from yesterday. And then, you know, I try and press this, and it's like, how did you sleep overnight? This is awesome. It's working. And then I'm going to pick an emoji to describe my sleep. And I'm just going to do the software keyboard just so I can do it. And I'm going to be like, I feel pretty content. And I press save. And you're like, okay, well, that does nothing. Why does that do nothing? Well, first reason is that if we take a look at this right here, we say, you know, when we never actually call our add item function. So let's fix that up real quick and run our application, you know? Okay, now if I try and say, yay, and I try and give myself, it's Command K for the keyboard, perfect. And I try to give myself a thumbs up. Right. Okay, cool. That's a view from today at 9:37 a.m. Except, you know, it doesn't say any of the information was saved. And why doesn't it say any of the information was saved? Well, it's because none of that information was actually ever, like, shown on that view. Like, right now, it's just showing what it used to show when we first started, but we didn't take into account the user, the emoji, or anything else. So last thing we're going to do to finish up this application with, you know, like 20 minutes left, so we're perfect on time. So make it look pretty. So just shut down my little view, and we're gonna go back to the code. I'm gonna share my screen. Right here, we're in the code, and we go back to we have our little views. We had our sleep journal, which is where we pulled in our sentiment analysis. We had our journal view, in which we actually showed like the journaling process, and then we have our sleep mode view, which is what we worked on Tuesday. And now we have our content view, which we kind of need to make this look better. So when we click on one of these tabs, currently what shows up is just item at item timestamp, formatter, item formatter. I think that's kind of boring. And then we have a label. So honestly, we're gonna change this up. First thing I'm gonna do is I don't want it to just say what day and time it was. I think that's kind of boring. So we'll do a label that says, something like ooh, super fun. Getting some errors. Yes, I get it. I get it. And then we're also going to do a label that says text. So now you're like, okay, technically I see it, but obviously our preview crashed. So what's up with that? And we can talk about it in just a second. So if we load it up, you can see, we have a happy sleep journal from today at 9:37:50 a.m. In the preview, the reason why this crashes is because you see our little content preview. We just pull in some variables from this preview container. So we're actually just going to not worry about this, and we're going to just change this to say, I want it to load content view. I don't want it to load anything specifically. So if it loads a blank screen, that's fine with me. And then what we're also going to do is we're going to say, I want to not show the time that we saved our journal at. I don't really care about that. So if we relaunch the application now, what you should be able to see if I present my phone is I can see sleep journal from 2/8/23. And then in here it says item at 2/8/23, which once again, kind of boring. Definitely could put some more stuff in here. But the edit button still works perfectly fine. Delete, all of that left the same. So now the very last thing we're going to do, and we're just going to close out of this phone, and then we're going to share my screen again. Oops. We're going to go back to our content view, and we're going to say, I want to display some different stuff when this view is done. So if I reload this preview really quickly, right now it's going to show no views. That is intended behavior. I wanted to show some other stuff. So it's saying for each item, I want it to link to some stuff, and then we'll do, let's swap out this text. When we click on it, I want to say sleep journal from item timestamp, and then I want it to be of the formatter that we defined earlier. So we'll just say, it's the formatter where we just select the date, and we'll make this font headline. And then we'll let's do some more text. We'll do some text that just says, you describe your sleep as. And we'll do this in slightly smaller font. And we'll actually extract the things from item.text. Then we'll go ahead and pull in our emojis. So the first one we'll do is we'll say the NLP model rated your sleep as a... Oh, the screen's not visible. Thank you for telling me. Oops. All right. So just what I did really quickly is I added these little texties here. Sleep journal describing my sleep, and then item.text. And just have to add the exclamation point really quickly, and then we say the natural language processing model rated the sleep as an item.emoji. And then we'll also add in a little view that says you rated the sleep and whatever emoji you use. And then we can go ahead and see what it looks like when we run it. So we'll go ahead and swap out the screen again to the phone. So you can kind of see now when we launch it, and I'll add this to the stream, you can see the sleep journal. And it says sleep journal from February 8th. You described your sleep as a yay. The natural language processing model described the sleep as a smiley face. You described the sleep as a smiley face. I'm like, I don't think we use smiley face. So if you can see here, we left it as item.emoji, but when you use item.yourEmoji, you relaunch, and then boom, it now has the thumbs up that we actually used. So this is the workshop completed. And, a fully functional natural language processing model that lets us describe our sleep. So hi there. Thank you for coming. This was very fun. And then we'll add in a little emoji. We'll add in a cool emoji. Save this. And then there she is. Sleep journal from February 8th, 2023. You described your sleep as a hi there. Thank you for coming. This was very fun. Which I agree with that. And we can, delete the journal that we just made. And it will still delete accordingly. And then, yeah, when we close out of this app or reopen it, it'll have history of all of these. We'll still have the stuff from yesterday that, determined our optimal wide now time using our training data set. And that's it. That's the workshop. Awesome. Woo! So for, if you're a future AI machine learning developer looking to get more involved in SwiftUI, and you're thinking about, okay, what could I do with this project to make it more useful, make it more something? A couple ideas that I had that I was like, we're not going to have time to cover them in the workshop, but a couple of ideas that I had is you could actually force the user to pick between one of the three emojis, right? When they're describing their own sleep. And that way you could train the data set to pick up what they think is good sleep, they think is okay sleep, and they think is bad sleep. That's a really fun project. And it's pretty complicated in terms of like actually getting the data to save in the natural language processing model and then getting your data retrained every time. It's a little bit more complicated, but it's a super fun way to get more involved in AI. Obviously, you can get lots of different ways of getting involved in SwiftUI and Swift development. Super fun project in terms of like trying to actually work out how things work. And within the 2 days, we've built a fully functional application. You pretty much have everything you need because when the data you save is specific to your phone. So if you download it, you'll be able to put in your own sleep statistics. Like say if you were to pull it on like your physical phone, like the one I have right here, if we were to put it on our physical phone, then we can, make that happen, which is pretty awesome in my opinion. And then yeah, so thank you all so much for coming to my first MLH workshop series. It was lovely to get to spend my morning with y'all, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, however long that may be. And I will see y'all at the next Global Hack Week. Bye, everybody!